I am Josh Albrecht here with Marian Floto. It is March 3rd, 2011, and we are here at the Meadows in Franklin Grove, and we will be conducting an interview with Marian. Marian, let's get started by getting a little background information on you.
Okay.
Where are you from, and how do you know Reagan?
I've lived in Dixon all my life, and I attended the church, a Christian church, First Christian Church, where Dutch and his mother attended. And I had some very good times with his mother, especially she would on Sunday would take us to the jail and out to the state school at that time, and she was always looking out for anyone that needed help. I can remember standing by the old jail, and she would be talking to the inmates in the building, and they'd call out and ask, "Mrs. Reagan, will you do this for me?" And so she was very kind to them. And when Dutch was at Lowell Park, I had a friend at Lois Fellows that drove a car, so we would go up to Lowell Park, and in the morning, why Dutch had to do the chores around, and he had to come to Dixon to get ice. We didn't have refrigeration at that time, and we would ride in the old truck that he had. The Graybills furnished that, and we used to come to Dixon, get the ice, take it back out to Lowell Park. That was really I enjoyed it. Of course, I had no idea that I was riding with a president at that time, but he was a wonderful guy. He taught a Sunday school class in the church, and one time he was a little bit like his mother, looking for a project. And I remember that their Sunday school class met in the furnace room, and so he thought it would kind of be nice for a project that they'd paint it. And so I had a brother that was in his class, and they painted the furnace room.
Do you remember what color they painted?
No, that's 100 years ago.
You talked a little bit about going to Lowell Park, and when you used to work out there, did you witness some of the 77 famous lives?
Well, there was times when I can't really put a finger on anything, but I remember that he'd be sitting out in the river, and we didn't especially hang around to watch what he did. I can remember.
So were people going out to Lowell Park, was it pretty much an everyday thing in the summer then?
Oh yes, that was our recreation. We didn't have a swimming pool at that time, and there just wasn't the distractions that we have today.
Sure. So Dutch was probably pretty popular then, being the lifeguard out there. And
oh yeah, he was very active in everything, and his mother was very dramatic, and I think that Dutch got to be very much like his mother.
Do you remember any of the sort of first tastes of drama for Dutch in Dixon? Do you remember any?
No, not necessarily. He was always in all the plays, and he went with the minister's daughter, and they were in various plays. His mother was, I think, he inherited a lot of her characters.
You mentioned going to the First Christian Church that Reagan attended. Do you remember anything else besides the painting of the classroom? Do you any other memories of being at the church with him?
He was a leader. There were a lot of church organizations at that time. Now, everybody, I don't know, things are different. They're not as active in churches, but we used to have a youth group that met every Sunday night at 6:30. It was our CE group, and he would be the leader. And
Do you have is there a favorite story of Dutch that you like to tell people? One that
no,
you
I
remember?
really don't.
No.
I
Do you have any memories of him at school? You know, being close to him. In
No,
age?
I wasn't in school with him that
Sure.
much. I was quite a bit younger, so I wasn't in high school at the same time. But, my husband was in high school at the same time. At that time, you know, we had a north side and a south side high school. And I think that Dutch went to the south side and Neil was over in the north side.
Do you have any memories of when he would return to Dixon? Did you interact with him at all then during any of the parades or special visits?
Well, I was always glad to see him. We were always, that was a big day. And I remember one very, very, very cold day that we stood out watching him.
Yeah, that's one that a lot of people have memories of. When he came back as president to give the speech. Were you able to go in and into the gymnasium to hear the
Yes.
speech?
I can remember he came to the Dixon High School.
Now you had a lot of. You had mentioned that you were involved with the Reagan Home in the early beginnings of that as a volunteer. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like, being a part of the restoration of that home.
Well, it was an experience. I remember we were there more or less at the beginning of when they were showing the home. My husband and I both were volunteers for years.
Was it easy being a volunteer and guide there, having that firsthand relationship with Reagan?
Well, no. As a matter of fact, I don't remember him living in that house. They lived in a lot of houses in Dixon, but I don't. That wasn't one of them.
Now, you mentioned earlier getting to ride in the truck with him to get the ice. How did that come about? How did you end up getting to be the lucky one to do that?
Well, I think we were the only ones there, probably following him around, and he was very kind. I mean, we were much. Well, my friend was older than I, but he didn't mind. And we went, and of course, we weren't strangers. We had gone to the same church, and we had fun.
A lot of people refer to Reagan's love of books and the library. Did you ever have any interactions with him at the library?
No.
Along with the church and the library and acting, you had mentioned he was in a lot of the plays. And you had mentioned his mother caring about the prison inmates. Do you have any other recollections of his interactions with his mom? And you had told a little bit of story about it.
Well, I can remember that she wrote to him every week when he was in Eureka, and on Sunday night after church service, we'd always take a drive around by the post office because she had a letter to. We didn't have communication like we have now. I have a daughter in California, and I talk to her every day. And now my son's in Texas, and I communicate with them. We didn't have communication like they did then. She wrote this letter on Sunday night. We took it to the post office and mailed it. So.
It sounded like you knew Reagan's mother pretty well through the church. Is that?
Oh, yes. I sat next to her in the choir as I got older.
So you probably heard a lot of stories about Reagan away at college through his through his
yes.
mother.
Mm.
Did you ever go over to their house for dinner
yes.
or parties? And
As a matter of fact, his mother had a shower for my mother when my youngest sister was born.
wow. Do you remember any times with Dutch coming back from college or anything like that, where you come back to the church for anything special?
Oh, we just never thought of it as anything.
Right.
It was just routine.
Right, it was how it was, sure, yeah. What's it like to look back on that now? As you said earlier, you know, riding in the car with him to go get ice, you never imagined you would be riding in the car with a future governor and a future president and actor. You know, looking back on that now, what's it like? What kind of...
I thought he was something special anyway, even then. He was very gracious, and there was quite an age difference, but he didn't seem to mind.
Do you think that was his... a lot of that had to do with how his mother had raised him in the
I
church?
think definitely. He's just a chip off of the old block, because she was talented too. She used to give readings.
Those readings was that at the library? The readings?
No,
at the library? Through the church.
Well, she spoke. You know, she could. I don't know what I want to say. But she gave readings.
You could almost say that he got some of his public speaking ability and his ability to give those great speeches.
I look at it that way. I don't know.
Do you have any recollections of his brother or his father?
Well, Neil was older, and so I really didn't cross paths with him as much. And his father had a weakness, but they never elaborated about it.
Did you live in Dixon
All my life.
your whole life? Mm-hmm. So you've seen the area change quite a bit from...
I remember his father. See, he was the manager of the fashion boot shop, and I remember going there. I didn't know his father personally, but I knew who he was.
Do you remember any other festivals or events or anything like that and interactions with Dutch? It was mainly through the church then for you. At that time with the church, you mentioned the volunteerism and the giving back. Do you remember anything else at the church besides Sunday school that there was an activity that Dutch would take part in, or that you would take part in, potlucks and things like that?
No. I was younger then, didn't even think about it. Everything just came spontaneously, I guess.
Right. Do you remember seeing him for the first time in the movies, and what that was like for you?
At the time, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
No.
Do you remember when he was elected as president and what the atmosphere was like in Dixon at all?
No, I can't. That just it came and went.
Sure.
But,
Sure. Did it almost seem like it was always that way?
Yeah.
It wasn't a surprise that it happened then.
He was very capable. And, I remember my mother, the first time that he ran for president, says, "Just think, someday we will say that we knew that president."
That's pretty unique.
It is, when you think about it.
Do you have any other memories of him out at Lowell Park? With that interaction of going and getting the ice? Did you guys play any
No.
games or anything out there?
No.
Did he never saved you, did he?
No.
You weren't one of the 77?
No, I never learned to swim.
Oh. That's great. Is there anything else that you remember? You had mentioned when we first started talking a little bit about his mother and his suits, and
That's the only, I remember Neil's wife telling me that.
Did you ever listen to him on the radio?
Oh, yes. Anytime we had an opportunity to.
Did that make you a Cubs fan? Listen to some of the Cubs games he would broadcast?
No.
No?
No. I'm not a sports fan too much. That's probably the reason.
Sure. And any other thoughts on your time as a volunteer at the Reagan Home? What it was like? Because he came back and visited the home, right? Were you a volunteer
yes.
at that time? Do you remember what that? Were you
Like-
there when he came and visited it?
No. We had a luncheon there. I remember one time when they came, but I don't.
How would you have described him? How would you describe your memory of him from his younger days as a person?
Well, he was very likable from the start. And, to recognize someone, I was quite a bit younger than he was. So, but he knew me. And I remember that cold time when he was here, and we were down at the South Central School, standing in line to meet him. Oh, how cold it was.
And did you get a chance to
Oh, yes.
to see him? Do you remember what you said to him?
No. My memory isn't that good. Sometimes. I wish I could have remembered more than I do.
Sure. Is there anything that you ever that you do, or a place that you might visit when you get the opportunity that always reminds you of him?
No, I can't say that. I can remember working in the church. Of course, I think his mother was right behind him. She was a very good worker, Sunday school teacher, and sang in the choir.
It sounds like she had a pretty dramatic impact on you
yes.
as well.
Oh, yes. They didn't have a car that I remember. That we always went after her and took her to church and took her home. So I don't remember them ever having a car. And I think he hitchhiked to Eureka on Sunday night.
Well, we really appreciate your time. If you do happen to think of anything else, please let us know. We'd love to come back out and
Okay.
if you
I really can't. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed my years that I knew him and knew the family, especially his mother was very, very personable person.
That's great. Well, thank you again.
Mm,